Revealed, 7 bone-chilling Japanese serial killers and their eerie, unexplained secrets, Vol.01. In the dim light of the vintage bookstore, dust particles danced in the air as Sarah and her son, Ethan, stepped inside, their footsteps echoing off the creaky wooden floor. The enticing scent of old paper surrounded them like a shroud, pulling them to a worn shelf tucked in the far corner. There, Ethan's finger trailed over the cover of a thick, leather-bound collection of horror stories, the words leaping out like jagged teeth, revealed, 7 bone-chilling Japanese serial killers and their eerie, unexplained secrets. He grinned wickedly, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Mom, we have to check this out." As they flipped through the pages, each photograph more disturbing than the last, Sarah felt an icy grip twist around her heart. These weren't just stories, they were chilling accounts of monsters who walked among them, each tale casting a long shadow over her simple suburban life. The details haunted her, one killer who believed he could transcend death, another who lured his victims with promises of fortune. Macabre illustrations leered, whispers of nightmares echoing in her mind, but Ethan was enthralled, eagerly devouring each word. "Look at this one," he exclaimed, pointing to a grotesque image of a man behind bars. He had his own cult. They said he could control minds. But between recollections of horror, the unshakable tension began to settle in their bones. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days blended into Halloween, whispers about recent disappearances began to swirl like the falling leaves in their quaint neighborhood. At school, Ethan's friends exchanged nervous glances, rumors morphing into ghost stories, each more exaggerated than the last. One night, after he sat bolt upright in bed, screaming after a dream of shadowy figures crowded in their home, Sarah's heart raced with a heavy worry. The weight of his nightmares pressed on her like a stone, turning tension into a thick coating of dread. Strange things started to ripple through their cozy home too. Lights flickered, cold drafts rushed by with no source, and doors creaked closed on their own. Was something lingering beyond the veil of what was real? With every late-night scroll through online forums, the boundary between Ethan's fascination and a lurking danger blurred, slowly revealing a startling correlation between the tales of the Japanese killers and the spine-tingling events unfolding in Maplewood. But even in the thickening darkness, a fleeting pulse of hope emerged as neighbors banded together, reminding Sarah of the strong ties that once held the community taut. Just as she started to breathe a little easier, shadows from her own past loomed, a military veteran hiding deep secrets. The connection she dreaded revealing to Ethan simmered beneath, thickening like fog, threatening to envelop them both. But the real question remained: could she confront the specters of her past to protect her son, or would fear shred the very fabric of their tight-knit family? With Halloween night fast approaching, a reckoning loomed that neither of them could escape. Would they find the courage to face what lay ahead, or would the creeping evil force them into silence forever? A bone-deep chill swept through the house as Sarah sat on the edge of Ethan's bed, the glow of his nightlight casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. Her eyes darted back and forth, searching for the source of the unease that clung to the air like a thick fog. The books had opened a door, and now, it felt like something was waiting just beyond the threshold, something that knew they had ventured too far. "Mom," Ethan whispered, pulling the covers tighter around his small frame, "do you think the stories are real?" His voice trembled, echoing in the quiet room, and Sarah felt the weight of his question settle heavily on her chest. "I don't know, sweetheart," she replied, forcing a calmness she didn't feel. "Just stories, terrifying stories." But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. The recent disappearances were too coincidental, too close to home. Ethan's fascination felt dangerous now, a moth drawn to the flickering flame. "Mom, can we talk about it?" He sat up, curiosity mingling with fear in his wide eyes. "What if it's one of those killers? What if they're here? She shivered. All of them are just stories, Ethan. I promise. But the shadows still danced, and in the corners of her mind, her own past whispered secrets she wasn't ready to face. Outside, the wind howled like a wounded animal, rattling windows and shaking the branches of nearby trees. It sounded like a warning, a reminder that things were shifting, and not in a good way. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. For a moment, both of them froze, hearts pounding in sync. Then, instinct took over. Stay here. Sarah commanded, rising abruptly. Fear rippled through her as she gripped the edge of the doorframe. Ethan blinked, but she could see the fear morphing into determination. I'm coming with you. He insisted, swinging his legs over the bed. No. She hissed, an edge of panic cracking her voice. You must stay here. Lock the door. Reluctantly, he nodded, his brow furrowed, but she saw the fight in his eyes and knew this wouldn't be easy. With one last look, she crept down the hall, each step heavy with the weight of responsibility. As she descended the staircase, another crash rang out, sharper this time, like glass shattering. There was a growing unease in her stomach, a clenching that told her they were not alone. Who is there? Sarah called out, her voice trembling but laced with defiance. Silence hung in response, an oppressive weight that filled the air. She felt her breaths quickening, arms itching to reach for something solid to ground herself, anything that could fend off whatever was lurking in her home. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the living room. It was there, lurking near the window, barely illuminated by the porch light. With a determination pushed forth by maternal instinct, she edged closer, hoping for any sign of what or who it might be. Then, as if sensing her approach, the shadow moved, melting effortlessly into the darkness. Panic set in. Had it seen her? Was it a prank? Or was it part of the horror? Just then, a soft whimper made her spin around, only to find Ethan standing at the top of the staircase, eyes wide, heart visibly racing. I heard it too, he whispered, stepping down a single step. Mom, I think it's coming for us. The chill in the air deepened, coiling around Sarah's spine like an icy serpent. The realization smashed into her like a freight train. She had to confront her past, or risk losing everything. Stay behind me, she commanded, her voice steely now. But as she turned back toward the source of the sound, dread crested like a wave, and a distant, eerie laughter echoed through the walls. What did they awaken from the depths unbeknownst to them? Would they face the monsters of their own making? In that moment, the laughter vibrated through the walls like an electric current, a sinister echo that seemed to crawl under her skin. It wasn't just any laughter, it felt ancient, like a lingering specter of past horrors. Sarah gripped the railing of the staircase, eyes straining against the dark as her heart thundered in her chest. Mom. Ethan's voice broke the silence softly, but she could hear the tremor, the unease gnawing at him. Stay there. She snapped, and the edge in her voice surprised even herself. She took a deep breath and willed her legs to move again. Each step felt like a plunge into ice-cold water, but she forced herself to advance further into the living room. As she crossed the threshold, her gaze swept over the abandoned space, suffocating under shadows. The furniture loomed like silent giants, each piece carrying years of memories. The drapes fluttered slightly, a whisper of movement that sent a shiver down her spine. But then she noticed a shard of glass glittering on the wooden floor. Her breath caught as she knelt to pick up the sharp fragment, realization washing over her. The window had been smashed. There must be a way in, a breach in their sanctuary. Ethan, call the police. She shouted, her voice rising with urgency. It was then, from the depths of the silent room, that the laughter returned closer this time, as if it was behind her, sneering at her attempt to seek help. Sarah spun around, the shard in her hand poised defensively. Show yourself. She demanded, but the words came out as a fragile plea. Nothing responded but the creaking of the house settling around her. Then she felt a cold breeze wrapping around her ankles, creeping up her legs. Something was moving in the darkness, something that sent her instincts into overdrive. She turned just as a shadow lunged from the corner. With reflexes honed by desperation, she swung the shard, but it met only air, and the entity melted back into the shadows. Panic clawed at her throat. "Ethan!" she yelled, heart pounding feverishly, "Lock yourself inside now." The boy's whimper echoed softly, followed by the sound of him scrambling back up the stairs. She could hear the door clicking shut. It was a small comfort, but in this moment, she felt more alone than ever. Suddenly, the laughter transformed into a wretched scream, a sound that penetrated the very fabric of her reality. It wasn't just noise, it felt like a physical attack, a reminder of every hidden fear and suppressed memory she had buried deep. "Mom!" Ethan cried out, and the sound of his voice shook something within her. Before she could respond, the laughter rose again, this time mixing with cries, familiar voices that echoed spine-chilling memories. Sarah's breath hitched as she strained to listen. It was a voice she recognized all too well. "Join us, Sarah," it taunted, dripping with malice. "You can't run from your past. It's time to face the truth." "Shut up!" she screamed, but her shout reverberated as if swallowed by the walls. The shadow, now emboldened, darted towards her again, becoming a shape filled with horrifying familiarity. In a jolt, Sarah collided with memories of a past she fought to forget. The faces of those long gone loomed in her mind and tightened around her heart. Without thinking, she bolted toward the staircase, seeking the safety of her son. She could feel the unseen entity pursuing her, a palpable force that wrapped around her like fishing lines, trying to reel her back, to claim her. Once at the top, she flung the door open, gasping for breath. "Ethan, you have to listen. We need to leave now." But as she scanned the room, dread filled her heart. Ethan stood frozen, staring at something behind her, his face ghostly pale. "Oh God, Mom," he whispered. With ice sending chills through her veins, she turned slowly. What she saw made her blood run cold. A figure appeared in the dim light, its eyes glowing with an unnatural fire. They were not alone anymore. The walls had not only echoed their fears, they had summoned something that would force them to confront their greatest nightmares. What had they truly awakened? Would they survive this night, or had they brought forth horrors they would never escape? The figure loomed larger than life, its glowing eyes cutting through the darkness like twin beacons of terror. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to process the scene unfolding in front of her. Ethan's breath quickened, each inhale sharp and shallow as he felt the chilling aura radiating from the entity that seemed to suck the warmth from the air. "Mom!" he whimpered, his voice quivering as he stepped back, inching closer to the wall as if he could blend into it. The horror etched in his expression twisted Sarah's insides. "What is that?" She could barely respond, her mouth dry and her throat tight. It was as if time had slowed, the atmosphere thick with dread. The figure seemed almost transparent, at first an apparition that flickered in and out of focus, yet its malevolence was palpable, like a dark cloud pressing down on their shoulders. "Sarah," the voice echoed, familiar yet distorted. "Do you remember me?" She clutched the shard of glass tightly, her knuckles digging into her palm. "No, it can't be." But even her denial felt weak against the onslaught of memories flooding her mind, memories of laughter, joy, and then, suddenly, silence. The warmth was replaced by a chill that seeped into her bones. "Face me," the shadow urged, its voice now a greedy whisper, invading her thoughts. "You've buried me long enough, Haven Tu." With every word, the shadows in the room began to sway and pulse, as if alive, drawing closer and tightening their grip around her. She had to fight back. The shard glistened ominously as she raised it, her heart thumping so loudly that she feared the creature would hear it and love the taste of her fear. Ethan watched in horror, his wide eyes darting between the looming figure and his mother, the courage draining from him. "Mom, don't. It's a trick. You think I want to hurt you?" The figure laughed, cruelly amused, its laughter twisting into something chilling. "You've hurt me enough already. It's time we settle the score," and I intend to finish what we started." Sarah's blood ran cold at the words. Was it really happening? Was the past surging back to claim her, or had something more sinister woken up in the shadows? She took a step forward, every instinct screaming for her to flee, yet she pushed against the walls of fear that threatened to confine her. "No!" she shouted, "I won't let you." With desperation fueling her resolve, she lunged forward, thrusting the shard towards the figure that it twisted, a scream erupting that battered at her ears. "You can't escape. I am your truth, your history. You think you can erase me?" Suddenly, a fracture opened in the very air, a dark chasm that seemed to breathe, drawing everything in around it, a hungry void. Sarah couldn't look away, her body refusing to move even as the creature's twisted form blurred at the edges, becoming more than just a shadow. "Ethan! Run!" she finally screamed, snapping from her paralysis, but Ethan stood rooted to the floor, caught in a spell of terror, staring at the growing darkness. "Mom, now!" she barked, her voice a raw, urgent command. With a startled gasp, he tore his gaze away long enough to scamper back, but Sarah knew it might already be too late. She felt the weight of the darkness thickening around her, hungry and eager. Whatever this entity was, it was growing stronger, feeding off the fear in the air like a predator ready to pounce. Emily's instincts kicked in. She rushed to her son, eyes darting between the swirling shadows and the abyss creeping at the edges of their reality. She grabbed Ethan's arm, her grip firm but shaking, her heart racing as she pushed him toward the end of the hallway instead. "Keep running," she urged, almost tearing them apart from the creature's pull. The air behind them grew heavier, thick with despair, and the walls thundered with disembodied laughter that echoed through the darkened corridors, but even as they fled, Sarah felt it, an irresistible force pulling at her, the whispers calling her back. Join us, they could not stay. They could not linger. But where could they go when everything was out to claim them? All she knew was that whatever she had lost, whatever she had tried to forget, now waited behind every shadow, keen to pull them both into the depths of darkness. "The darkness wants you, Sarah." The voice boomed louder this time, trying to worm its way into her resolve, twisting her memories into chains. What awaited them at the end of this endless corridor? Would escape even be possible as the past twisted itself into their present? The battle was far from over, though it felt like they were losing ground with every step. "Mom, I can't," Ethan whimpered, his voice cracking and despair creeping into every word. Driven by a need to protect her son, Sarah gave one last fierce glance behind her. The figure stood unhindered, the shadows of their past looming larger than ever. As they rounded the corner, she could feel it, a drop in temperature, the promise of something waiting. What would they find as they tried to leave this house bound by blood and secrets? Would they ever escape, or would they be pulled back into the past that sought to consume them both? Ethan's legs felt like lead, shackled by terror that threatened to suffocate him. Sarah's grip on his arm tightened as they barreled down the hallway of shadows, her heart thudding like a war drum. There was something behind them, something relentless, and it was gaining ground. "Mom, please!" Ethan gasped, his breath hitching with every frantic step. Every scrap of faith he had in escaping the darkness was being stripped away. "What if it gets us? Just keep moving." She shot back, a hollow urgency in her voice. They turned sharply, only to find another door at the end of the corridor looming before them, ominous and heavy with dread. The shadows crackled around them, pulsating with energy. It felt as if the walls were alive, a sinister heartbeat matching their own racing pulses. Sarah reached for the doorknob, feeling it chill her palm. With a deep breath, she yanked it open, revealing a room soaked in darkness that stretched beyond the known, a blackness that felt more alive than the very air they breathed. Inside, echoes of long-buried laughter danced like phantoms, chilling her bones. "Can we hide here?" Ethan pleaded, looking back, a fear etched into the contours of his young face. A part of her wanted to say yes, to promise him that they could simply vanish from this nightmare. But she knew it wouldn't stop. The entity would follow them, gnawing at any sanctuary they might find. "Not here," she whispered, almost as if she were giving in to the shadow's beckoning. Just as she stepped inside, an icy wind blew through the opening. It swirled around them, lifting tendrils of darkness that snaked like fingers toward her. Panic shot through Sarah. "Close it. We can't stay here." Ethan grabbed the door and pulled it shut, but before it clicked, she caught a glimpse of something beyond a fleeting shadow, that twisted and turned, a distorted version of what once was. Her heart squeezed. It felt so familiar. No, it can't be a voice, low and muffled, floated from the room's depths, taunting her. "Sarah, I've been waiting for you. Run. Just run." She commanded again, feeling the pull of the shadows growing stronger. They dashed down the hallway, colliding into the next room, a kitchen that smelled of rot and despair. Flickering lights cast eerie shadows, the room's corners deepening into pools of darkness. "Mom, I don't think we can keep running," Ethan said, his voice cracking, the growing weariness evident. The shadows seemed to wrap tighter, strands of despair trying to coil around him. "No. We have to." She barely finished her sentence when a disembodied whisper crept into the air, "Let him go, Sarah." It slid into her mind like poison, paralyzing her. Ethan's fearful eyes widened as he stepped closer to her, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please, we can't let it take me." The entity was relentless. A shadow darted across the kitchen, reaching for Ethan's small form. Sarah's heart shattered at the thought, raw determination surging within her. She stepped in front of her son, shielding him with everything she had. "You won't take him. You have to go through me first." But the figure merely chuckled, the sound resonating off the walls, a siren call to the darkness. "You could never protect him. You've always known that, haven't you?" At that moment, she felt it, cold fingers gripping at her heart's core, squeezing. It was true, the weight of all those regrets. But this was a fight, and she wouldn't lose it. "Stay close," she whispered, glancing at Ethan's terrified face, and together they edged toward the only exit. As they stumbled backwards, she could see the figure materializing. It was a nightmare-given form, a swirling mass of memories and pain, the past clawing its way back into her existence. "Where are you going, Sarah?" The voice dripped with mockery, shaking her resolve. They stumbled through the door, and what awaited them was a rotting staircase spiraling downward, darkness pooling at its base. "Mom, do we have to?" Ethan's voice trembled at the edge of despair. "Yes. We need to find the light," she urged, pushing him ahead. But as they descended, the darkness seemed to push back, pulling at their ankles, whispering secrets that twisted like knives in her gut. What hideous truths awaited them beneath this house? Was the past ready to devour them whole? With each step they took, it felt as if the shadows that haunted them were rousing something waiting in the abyss, something much worse than either of them could imagine. Each step they took down the staircase felt heavier, like they were dragging the weight of their fears behind them. The air thickened, suffocating, wrapping around them like a serpent ready to strike. Sarah could hear Ethan's breath quickening, his small frame trembling beside her. "Don't look back, Ethan. Just keep your eyes on me," she whispered, sensing the shadows clawing at their heels. The world above seemed to dissolve into nothing, swallowed whole by the creeping darkness below. As they reached the bottom step, an oppressive silence fell. No more flickering lights or echoing whispers, but an eerie stillness that pulsed with an unknown threat. Sarah's heart raced, a war drum of dread. She peered into the abyss before them, only to be met by a cold, damp stone wall. "Is this it?" Ethan's voice faltered as he stepped forward, uncertainty lacing his tone. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we can't stay here. We have to find a way out." As they fumbled through the dense darkness, Sarah felt an icy draft brush past her, a chill that clawed at her skin. Something was watching them, lurking just out of sight. She could feel it, like a predator stalking its prey. Then, without warning, a faint light flickered to life at the far end of the corridor. It was a pale glow that beckoned them forward, casting long shadows along the damp walls. Sarah hesitated, a part of her warning her to turn back. But what choice did they have? "Mom, look!" Ethan pulled her arm, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. "Maybe it's an exit." "Stay close," she said again, determined yet aware of the mounting danger. They moved toward the light, but as they approached, it felt more suffocating than inviting. Suddenly, the shadows at the edges of the light began to swirl, forming shapes that twisted and writhed, faces emerged, contorted in anguish, mouths opened in silent screams. Sarah recoiled, gripping Ethan tighter as a wave of paralyzing terror washed over them. "Help us!" a voice echoed from the darkness, barely a whisper yet so tangible, it felt like a cold hand wrapping around her throat. "Mom!" Ethan's voice broke through her fog of fear, trembling and urgent. "We have to get out of here." She turned, her instincts kicking in, shoving him backward, away from the encroaching shadows. "Run!" she commanded, fear giving her voice an edge. They sprinted past the flickering light, the disembodied whispers growing louder, clawing at their sanity. It felt like madness, a cacophony threatening to drown them, the anguished cries transformed into distorted laughter, a cruel mockery echoing through the corridor. "You can't escape. You're never safe." It taunted, wrapping around them like chains. They tore through the darkness, desperately seeking the next doorway, any sign of escape. Just as Sarah thought they might be free, she stumbled against something solid. Gasping, she saw the door looming before her, jagged edges outlined by that haunting glow. "Here!" she yelled, pulling the door open. But within, an unimaginable landscape awaited, a vast emptiness beyond, testimony to losses and sorrows too profound to comprehend. Ethan trembled beside her. "Mom, what is this place?" Her heart sank as she sensed the truth crashing in like waves against the shore. "I don't know, but we have to find a way through." When she stepped over the threshold, the cold crept up her legs, pulling her down. Fear gripped her throat. "Ethan!" "Mom!" His scream shattered her resolve. She turned to grab his hand, but before she could reach him, the shadows lunged, capturing him in a tight embrace. The darkness pulled him, a vortex of despair swirling all around. "No! Let him go!" Sarah cried, plunging back, her body colliding with the doorframe as panic surged within her. The shadows froze, as if questioning her command. "You can stay with him, if you only let go," the voice hissed, slithering into her mind, twisting her pain into chains. Time slowed. Each heartbeat felt like a lifetime. Would she risk everything to save him? Or was the asked sacrifice too high? She didn't have much time. The shadows surrounding her. Sun grew darker, their hearts filled with urgency to claim him. "Sarah, please," a small voice quaked from the abyss. "Hold on tight," she shouted, determination blazing in her heart. The shadows lurched forward, fury in their grasp, reality bending to their will. Her gaze fixed on Ethan, her survival instinct sparked. What were they willing to lose to escape this nightmare? Was there even a way out? And then, a pulse of light exploded through the darkness. What would it reveal? Would it guide them home, or deliver them deeper into the abyss? The light burst forth, brilliant and blinding, casting the shadows into retreat. It felt like a lifeline, an ember in the suffocating dark. Sarah squinted, momentarily disoriented. The grip of the shadows slackened just enough for her to muster the courage to dash forward. "Ethan!" she called again, her voice now a cry of desperation, slicing through the thick quiet that threatened to swallow them. She could see him, barely, tangled in the tendrils of inky blackness, but he remained just out of reach. "Mom! I can't." His plea was choked off, swallowed by the void. Determination surged within her. One step, then another, pushing against the icy barrier. With each stride, the warmth of the light enveloped her, and vivid images spiraled around her consciousness, a kaleidoscope of moments filled with laughter, mundane family dinners, bedtime stories. Each memory was a thread that pulled her forward, urging her to break through the bleak aura that consumed her. "Boy," Sarah lunged. Her fingers brushed his wrist, and an electric jolt coursed through her. In that moment, she saw Ethan's face, twisted in fear but also lit by the same spark of hope she felt. "Hold on." She gripped him fiercely, yanking with all her strength. The shadows howled, furious at her defiance, tendrils lashing out like whips. One struck her arm, pain flaring like fire, but she didn't let go. Drawing on every ounce of her energy, Sarah pulled Ethan out against the pull of the darkness. The shadows hissed and writhed, forming a maelstrom around them, closing in faster and tighter. "Together!" she shouted, clenching their interlocked hands. "We need to push back. You have to believe, Ethan." "I believe, Mom." His voice trembled but steadied, harmonizing with hers as if they were one. In a surprising burst, light radiated from their clasped hands, shining brighter than the invader shadows, radiating warmth that spread through their bodies. The shadows recoiled, and for a moment, the horror of the world around them shattered like glass. Together, they stumbled through the door, blinded by the radiance. Then, just as quickly as it began, the light faded. They found themselves standing on a cliff, overlooking a churning sea that tossed and crashed with monstrous waves. The ground beneath their feet was warm, comforting, but the wild, turbulent waters roiled with a deep, predatory hunger, calling them closer. "Where are we?" Ethan's voice was a mix of awe and fear, as if the vastness of the unknown was too much to comprehend. "I don't know," Sarah breathed, taking in their surroundings. Mist rolled off the waves, curling around their ankles. In the distance, she spotted dark shapes surfacing occasionally, monstrous gray figures shifting under the water, writhing like the shadows they had just escaped. The feeling of danger surged back, like an electric jolt coursing through her veins. Suddenly, the ground shook an earthquake of uncertainty, rattling the edges of her resolve. "Mom." Ethan's face contorted with fear as the very earth beneath them seemed to come alive, cracking and shifting, like molasses underfoot. She grabbed onto him, but the cliffs began to crumble. "Ethan! We have to find a way off this cliff." She shouted over the roar of the crashing waves, the sea now a cacophony of sinister whispers shaping riddles in the wind. Just then, she caught a glimpse of something gleaming beneath the surface of the turbulent sea, a reflection. Or was it a promise? "Look!" She pointed urgently. "We need to see what that is." But before she could take a single step closer, a bolt of shadow from above descended, the sky darkening as if painted by despair, a curtain of encroaching gloom. "Mom!" Ethan clung tightly, fear racking his body. A chilling sense of dread settled in her stomach. What awaited them beyond the edge of the cliff? Would they find salvation in that ebbing light, or was this merely another trap laid by the darkness that had haunted them? The realization hit hard. Whatever lay below them, it was calling a siren song promising either freedom or their final undoing. "Are we ready?" she asked, her own voice drowned in the noise around them. "Together?" "Together," Sarah affirmed, her heart swelling with unconditional love and an undeniable spark of hope. And then, as the shadows lunged toward them, they made the leap into the unknown. What awaited them below, and would they confront the darkness once more, or was this the beginning of a new nightmare? The moment they jumped, time itself warped. The world around them dissolved into a blur of shadow and light, spiraling downwards. Sarah felt the air press against her skin, a cacophony of noise exploding in her ears. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Ethan squeezed her hand tightly, his tiny frame lost in the storm of chaos around them. "Mom! I'm scared." "Me too." She shouted over the roar, the words barely escaping her lips as they plummeted into the darkness below, the churning ocean stretching out endlessly beneath them. Then, without warning, they landed not with a splash, but with a soft thud on a sandy beach. The contrast was jarring. Sunlight streamed down, illuminating the landscape, revealing their new surroundings. The sea was now calm and majestic, its surface sparkling like diamonds in the light, but the shadows lurked at the edges, coiling like smoke around the rocks. "What just happened?" Ethan asked, his voice a mix of awe and trepidation. I don't know, Sarah replied, glancing around. The beach felt surreal, beautiful yet unsettling. A distant, rhythmic sound crashed against the shore, the waves whispering secrets that they couldn't quite understand. As they moved further onto the sand, she caught sight of bizarre symbols etched into large stones scattered along the beach, jagged and foreboding. Each symbol seemed to pulse, as if they were alive, and a chill ran up her spine. "Mom, look!" Ethan pointed, his eyes wide. "What are those?" "Let us stay away from them," Sarah urged, instinct kicking in. They walked carefully, but her curiosity clawed at her. What were those symbols? A warning? Or perhaps a map leading to greater threats lurking not far from where they stood? She forced herself to focus on their immediate situation. They were alive, together. But where were they? "Do you hear that?" Ethan asked, peering into the distance. At first it seemed like the wind, a low hum blending with the sound of the waves. But as they listened closer, it became more distinct, a faint voice, calling out in a language Sarah didn't recognize, and yet the tone felt strangely familiar. The air thickened with an intoxicating sweetness, pulling her towards the source. "We should check it out," she said, her voice wavering with uncertainty. Ethan hesitated, glancing back at the shadows licking at the edges of their safety. But what if it's dangerous? His small face creased with worry. "Everything is dangerous right now," Sarah replied, her heart heavy with the burden of protection. "We have to find out what this place wants from us." They trudged toward the sound, each step tightening the knot of dread in her stomach. With each inch, the whispering grew louder, echoing in her ears like an ancient hymn. Suddenly, they broke through a cluster of rocks onto a clearing. Before them, a figure cloaked in shadow stood, its outline shifting, blending with the nuances of the darkness. Sarah's breath caught. Who are you?" she stammered. The figure turned, revealing nothing but a void where a face should have been. "You have come to seek the truth," it murmured, its voice like ice racing down her spine. "But truth comes at a cost." "What cost?" Ethan's voice broke, fear bubbling to the surface. "The price is your fear, your memories," the figure replied, extending a hand that shimmered with shadows, the air thick with foreboding. Sarah felt the ground beneath her tremble as the ocean behind them began to surge. The tumult brewing once more. In that moment, she understood. To uncover the mysteries of this strange place, they might be asked to sacrifice more than just their fears. "Mom, what do we do?" Ethan's grip tightened on her wrist, a lifeline of innocence amidst the chaos. "Together," she whispered fiercely. "We can face this." But could they? As the shadows danced and the waves roared, Sarah's resolve would be tested in ways she never imagined. What memories would they have to confront to move forward? And what shadows would they awaken in the process? The shadows pulsed with life, swirling around the figure like dark silk, while the ocean foamed and crashed against the rocks behind them, mirroring the turmoil in Sarah's heart. She had always thought of truth as something noble, a guiding light. But standing before this cloaked presence, she felt the weight of its price dragging her down. "Your journey begins with a choice," the figure whispered, its voice echoing as if drenched in the ocean's depths. The hand it extended shimmered ominously, an invitation wrapped in dread. "What do you mean?" Sarah began, her voice trembling. "What do you expect us to give?" Ethan's small body trembled beside her. She sensed his fear wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. "We give up our fears." "How does that even work, Mom?" he asked, his innocence shining through the cracks of panic. "Some memories are curses," the figure spoke, its tone hypnotic yet charged with malice. "This place demands truth in exchange. Only then will the storm calm." A shiver inched down Sarah's spine as she considered the words. The thought of surrendering parts of themselves, pieces of their past, felt as if they were trading a part of their very souls. Would they even be the same after it? But wasn't their current situation a storm of its own? Slowly, the ocean's roar began to meld with the voice of the figure, forming a disturbing harmony that filled her head, urging her forward. With every pulse of the symbols embedded in the stones, her skin tingled as if they were alive, each carving breathing a whisper of the past. Memory was a double-edged sword. Ethan tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, please. I don't want to forget anything. What if they make us forget the good stuff?" She crouched down, locking eyes with him. "I don't think we'll forget the good things, Ethan. We will remember our love, our laughter." But even as she spoke, shadows of doubt crept into her mind. The laughter of a past felt light years away, as if they had never been the family they were. "Mom, I'm scared." Ethan's voice cracked and her heart twisted. "Why would anyone take our memories?" "Because sometimes," the figure interjected, "the truth is too heavy to carry." There was an unsettling calmness to its words, like a summer sky before a storm. Sarah's heart raced. The shadows swelled dangerously close, and the ocean groaned behind them, rising higher with each second. They had to decide. "Mom, is this about Dad?" Ethan's small voice broke through her thoughts. Michelle had hidden his father's secret as if it were buried treasure, and now, she wondered if the cost of revealing it loomed before them. The figure shifted, darkness swirling like a whisper of smoke. "Every truth holds a link. The good, the bad, your father's hidden past shapes your present." The sound of crashing waves began to echo louder, a cacophony of fear and urgency. Time felt like it was fracturing around them. With the ocean clawing at the shore and the figure towering like a wraith, Sarah felt a rush of determination mixed with terror. "We'll face it, Ethan. If this is our chance to know the truth, then we will embrace it together whatever it takes. Even if it means facing our deepest fears." But with each step forward, the shadows writhed hungrily closer, their chilling whispers creeping into her mind, clawing at her resolve. What memories would they unlock, and would they be ready to confront the consequences? As they edged towards the beckoning figure, a sudden wave roared violently, crashing against the beach, sending a spray of salt water soaring. Then, silence fell. The figure quivered, waiting. And with that silence, Sarah knew they were on the precipice of something monumental, a truth waiting to shatter their world. What shadows would they unearth, and what truth was worth such a heavy sacrifice? With a determined breath, Sarah stepped forward, her heart echoing the chaotic rhythm of the crashing waves. "We are ready." Her voice rang clear, slicing through the tension as she gripped Ethan's small hand tightly, grounding him against the surge of uncertainties. The cost might be steep, but facing the shadows was their only path to freedom. The figure's darkness pulsed, and its voice slithered into her ears, seductive and unnerving. "Very well. You must each confront what you hide, what you fear most. Only then will you find the truth you seek." Ethan's grip tightened on her hand, his wide eyes reflecting palpable terror, but beneath it, she sensed his fierce resolve. "Together, right?" he whispered, a spark of bravery flickering in his eyes. She nodded, her heart swelling with overwhelming pride mixed with a tinge of fear. "Together," she affirmed, squeezing his hand. Without warning, the ground shifted beneath them, and they were enveloped in a blinding light. Sarah shielded Ethan's eyes as warmth washed over them, then suddenly, the brightness faded, revealing a fragmented picture that unfolded like a story unwritten. They stood in the middle of a quiet suburban street, one starkly familiar yet burdened with shadows. This was their home, but different. The sky was gray, and whispered echoes of laughter faded in the distance. "Mom." Ethan's voice trembled as he looked around at their old neighborhood, now cloaked in an eerie stillness. "What are we doing here?" "It's a memory," she replied, recognizing the scene. "But I don't remember it like this." Shadows loomed at the edges of their vision, waiting, a stark reminder of the pain woven into the fabric of their lives. They edged cautiously forward until they reached their house, once a place of warmth and laughter. Now, it felt cold, haunted. Hesitation washed over Sarah. "This is where it all began," she said softly, the weight of dread pressing down on her. "We have to go inside," Ethan urged, his voice steady despite the quivering in his small frame. Taking a deep breath, they stepped over the threshold. The air was thick, and the ambience shifted, whispers rising like steam in a fog. Every inch of the house felt alive, memories thrumming along the walls. "Can you hear that?" Ethan asked, eyes wide. "Yeah, it's the past," she murmured, feeling memories clash inside her mind, ghosts of happiness tangled with shadows of sorrow. Without warning, the room warped, and scenes flickered violently. Images of laughter morphed into angry voices and lost hope. She saw visions of Ethan's father, a jovial man, then suddenly, his face contorted into despair and regret. "Help me," a voice cried, filling the room with sorrow. It was him, the man she had loved but lost to his demons. "Dad?" Ethan whispered, confusion and sadness flooding his young face. "What happened?" Sarah couldn't answer. Instead, she felt her heart tear. "It's all tangled, Ethan. What he faced, it was bigger than us." As the shadows encroached, she understood its significance, past secrets clawing to be resurrected. Then, the laughter turned to sobs, and a scene emerged: a younger Sarah, desperately trying to reach out to her husband as the darkness consumed him. "I couldn't save him," she admitted, the weight of the truth crashing around her, sharp and piercing. "I never faced it." A flicker of forgiveness shone in Ethan's eyes. "But you fought to protect me. You moved on." "Did I?" she whispered, doubt peeling back layers of fortitude. The room continued to shake, shadows rising menacingly, and Sarah felt Ethan's grip grow slack with fear. "Mom! What if we can't escape?" His voice was muffled, lost amid the chaos, but just as fears grasped at their throats, another light surged, swirling in blue luminance, encompassing them both. "This is your chance," the figure's voice echoed, now replaced with a haunting familiarity. "Face your truth, Sarah." In that light, she could see Ethan's father, standing in his brokenness, tears streaming down his face. "Don't let it take your son. Don't let the past drown you both. It's time to forgive." With newfound strength, Sarah stepped forward, her heart racing but resolute. "I forgive you," she uttered, tears flowing unchecked. "I forgive you for leaving us. For allowing the shadows to creep in. But I won't let you take my son." The shadows lingered, wavering, eyes glistening. "Face your fears," they echoed, relentless. "Together," she shouted, holding tightly to Ethan's hand. "Together, we are stronger." And then, silence blanketed the room. A quiet calm, followed by another wave of light, cascading over them, dissolving the darkness that sought to bind them. Ethan smiled, his face radiant against the fading shadows. "We made it, Mom." As they turned to leave the house, stepping outside, they felt the warmth of the sun touch their skin, illuminating their world anew. The shadows faded from the corners, dissipating like mist in the morning light. "Look!" Ethan pointed as vibrant colors returned. The street brimmed with life, their neighborhood alive again. Joyful laughter echoed from houses once more. "We're home." "Home," Sarah echoed, her heart swelling with gratitude. They were freed and no longer burdened by secrets or fears. They embraced the moment the light would guide their paths forward, no longer shadows standing in their way. As warmth enveloped them, Sarah and Ethan shared a knowing smile, a bond forged in the fires of love and truth, ready to face whatever came next together. This journey had transformed them, freed them. And as they walked, shoulders squared against future shadows, the darkness that once called them no longer held power. It was over, but they would always remember, and you, dear friend, are part of this journey too. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that wait beyond these pages. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts, and we want every heart to hear this tale. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear what you felt, what you loved, and what you thought. And wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They deserve to know that together, facing our shadows can lead to the light. Your support makes this all possible. Thank you.